What if I told you that lying in bed with your eyes closed isn't actually resting? Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to fundamentally change how you think about sleep. For so long, we've been taught that sleep is just this passive state, right? Like you're a smartphone, just shutting off the screen and powering down. But the truth? It is the most active, dynamic, and absolutely vital biological engine driving your mental clarity, your emotional resilience, and your physical recovery. We're going to dive deep into the modern neuroscience of exactly how sleep optimizes your brain and how you can actually use it to recover from burnout.
So, you know that feeling. You get your full 8 hours, your alarm goes off, and you still wake up feeling completely wiped out. If you're carrying around that deep, lingering chronic fatigue, I really need you to hear this. It is not a personal failure. It's a biological misalignment. Your body is desperately trying to run a highly sophisticated recovery program, but the conditions just aren't right.
It all comes down to sleep debt. And we're not just talking about needing an extra coffee in the afternoon. This is the silent driver of the modern burnout epidemic. See, when we chronically restrict our sleep, we aren't just a little groggy. We're racking up a massive, compounding physiological deficit. This debt throws your hormones completely out of whack, it spikes systemic inflammation throughout your entire body, and it literally accelerates your biological aging. You simply can't cheat your biology without eventually paying the tax.
Look, there is a massive difference between just logging hours in bed and actually sleeping. Lying horizontally in the dark for 8 hours does not automatically mean your brain is healing. True recovery requires the physiological necessity of uninterrupted restorative sleep phases. If your sleep is highly fragmented, tossing, turning, waking up slightly, you're completely missing out on the deep healing your nervous system is practically begging for.
There's a quote from the neuroscience community that I think hits the nail on the head perfectly. It says, "The brain is the most metabolically active and toxin-vulnerable organ in the human body, making structured, high-quality sleep a biological requirement for cognitive longevity." We absolutely have to reframe how we view rest. It's not a luxury for the lazy. It's a non-negotiable requirement for your survival and your long-term brain health.
Let's dive into Section 1, the glymphatic brainwash.
Okay, so back in 2012, researchers discovered something incredible called the glymphatic system. Think of it like a biological sump pump for your central nervous system. It uses the convective flow of cerebrospinal fluid to physically wash away metabolic waste and toxins right out of your brain tissue. It's essentially your brain's overnight trash collection service. But here's the catch. The garbage trucks only run when you're in deep, slow-wave sleep. Get this. During deep sleep, the space between your brain cells, the interstitial space, actually expands by a staggering 60%. 60%! Your brain cells literally shrink down to reduce tissue resistance, which allows this massive wave of cerebrospinal fluid to rush in and wash over your neural networks. It's a breathtaking physical transformation, but again, it only happens when you are deeply asleep.
And the payoff for that expansion is huge. The clearance of neurotoxic proteins is twice as fast during sleep. When we're awake, there's a staggering 90% reduction in the efficiency of this process. Let that sink in. If you aren't getting deep sleep, the trash simply isn't getting taken out. It just sits there, accumulating inside your skull.
So what exactly is in that trash? We're primarily talking about amyloid beta and tau proteins. Failing to clear these specific proteins out every single day is a paved pathway straight to cognitive fatigue, profound memory loss, and eventually neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's disease. Optimizing your sleep isn't just about feeling good tomorrow, it's literally your ultimate, scientifically backed longevity habit.
Moving right along to Section 2, cortisol and the nervous system.
This is where things get really sensitive. Sleep regulates stress, and stress shatters sleep. It's a two-way street. When we lose sleep, it actively triggers our body's stress signaling networks, just flooding us with stress hormones. And when we're chronically stressed, that state of constant hyperarousal completely blocks that critical healing glymphatic wash we just talked about. It becomes this vicious cycle of burnout that just feeds on itself.
Normally, in a healthy nervous system, your daily cortisol rhythm looks like a beautiful, smooth curve. It peaks in the morning to wake you up and get you alert. It gradually drops throughout the day, and it hits its absolute lowest point, the nadir, late at night, which opens the physiological door for sleep. But chronic sleep fragmentation? It completely shatters this curve. It leaves your evening cortisol artificially high, keeping you trapped in that frustrating, tired but wired state.
But here is the good news.
A recent study followed university soccer players through a simple 14-day sleep hygiene intervention. In merely 2 weeks of focusing on better habits, their anticipatory cortisol and stress responses dropped significantly, particularly for the female participants. It's incredible proof that even short-term, focused improvements can rapidly calm down your stress axis and rebuild powerful emotional resilience.
All right, Section 3, Thermoregulation and Sleep Quality. You might be wondering, how does your brain actually know it's time to pull the trigger on all this recovery? It's all about temperature. For your brain to even initiate sleep, your core body temperature must drop. It's a non-negotiable physiological trigger. Your body does this by shedding heat. It pushes blood away from your core and out to your extremities, like your hands and feet. This process is called vasodilation, and it's basically the biological on switch for rest.
This creates what I like to call the evening cascade. The sun goes down, the light fades, and that signals your brain's pineal gland to start synthesizing melatonin. That melatonin then acts as a hormonal messenger that facilitates the rapid cooling of your core body temperature right before bed. It's like dominoes. One perfectly triggers the exact next step, seamlessly preparing your biology for deep recovery.
But consider what happens when that state is disrupted, like with clinical insomnia, or even just modern life. When you're chronically stressed, anxious, or doom-scrolling in a brightly lit room at 11 p.m., your body struggles to release that core heat. And that trapped heat literally acts as a physical roadblock. It prevents your brain from crossing the threshold into the deep, slow-wave sleep required to run that essential brainwash.
So, how do we fix it? That brings us to Section 4, Modern Sleep Stacking.
What exactly is sleep stacking? Well, it's the strategic practice of building a small, manageable set of consistent sleep hygiene habits that compound over time. We aren't talking about a stressful, total life overhaul overnight. It's about creating stable, repeatable cues that eventually train your nervous system to power down completely on autopilot.
Step 1 is mastering your environment. You've got to turn your bedroom into a literal recovery sanctuary. Drop the room temperature down to somewhere between 60 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit. That actively forces that necessary core body temperature drop we talked about. Black out all the ambient light, kill the noise with earplugs if you have to, and invest in bedding that actually supports your body.
And here is your ultimate checklist for circadian synchrony. Maintain a consistent sleep schedule. Yes, even after a bad night, and absolutely on the weekends. Get bright sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning to set your internal clock. Move your caffeine intake earlier in the day. Sorry, but that 4 p.m. cold brew definitely has to go. And create a repeatable wind-down routine. Consistency is the anchor of nervous system regulation.
I really want to emphasize the stakes here. What happens if we ignore all of this? Consistently sleeping 6 hours or less increases your risk of developing dementia later in life by a staggering 30%. 30%. This isn't just about feeling a bit groggy during a morning Zoom meeting. It is about protecting the long-term survival and function of your brain. So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Are you going to keep letting your biological engine run on empty? Or are you going to take the steps to optimize your sleep and actually heal your brain tonight? The neuroscience is undeniably clear, and the tools for recovery are right there in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and here is to a deeply restorative, optimized night's rest.